Welcome to another episode of the Field Sales Unscripted podcast. I'm your host, Boehnlein. What you're about to hear is a conversation between myself and Jim, a regional sales manager at UVI. We went really deep. We tapped into some of those emotional areas that we typically don't talk about as sales leaders. The fear that he had when he first stepped into this position. And he walks us through how he went from selling to the very first customer in North America to building out a team that is dependent on a process to help them achieve their goals. I'm really excited for you to hear this conversation, and I hope you get a lot of value from it. Make sure that you take a moment and you subscribe so you get all of the episodes as soon as they drop once a week. All right, Jim, I am so excited to chat with you today. I am going to launch right into this conversation. So tell us a little about yourself and UVI.
Yeah, fortunate. I'm one of the original 5 employees that were brought in to craft the go-to-market strategy at UVI. After a long career in the automotive industry, managing in-stores, which is a little bit of a different business model. So it's been a fun transition to move from the retail side to the vendor side. UVI, quick background on the company. So we are an AI-based, computer vision-powered automated vehicle inspection system. So we go at the entrance of service drives or appraisal lanes, and we inspect vehicles upon arrival. So dealerships have a better understanding what the condition of the car is, so they can communicate that to the customer. Our role is to sell that to dealers, to get that in front of dealers and find clients for the company. So it's been a fun 4.5 years for sure.
4.5 years. So I
Yes.
know when we had our call, when we were prepping, you mentioned that you were one of the first hires in the US. So
Yes.
tell us about, what did the organization look like when you first stepped in?
Well, first it was completely remote. The team was based in Tel Aviv, Israel. So they hired 5 US-based automotive-facing employees, and we sort of crafted the go-to-market strategy in a tiny little rented office with a couple whiteboards. So we had to figure out who the company was, what the technology was, how it could potentially benefit the target client. We didn't know that because we had no real clients at that time. So we had to sort of theorize what the value, what the impact could be based on our experience managing in stores, and then craft the go-to-market strategy. So there was a cultural separation from Tel Aviv to the States. There was also a very heavy foundation of technology and what we did, and very little focus on what the actual impact was, because just to be truthful, we just didn't know at that time. We were so early and brand new. That, of course, has since pivoted more to what the impact of our tech is versus just the technology. But yeah, it's been an interesting journey for me. Startup first off, and then second, the cultural differences and just merging a team, across the ocean, the U.S., different markets. So it's been an exciting process.
So what are some of because you talked about some of the challenges that you guys had initially, and a lot of times when we're in startup land or even starting in a new position, we focus so much on the bad.
Yes.
What were some of the early wins that you have? Revenue, team, anything. What were some early wins?
Yeah, I was fortunate to sign the first retail customer for UVI, a small auction type site, which really wasn't our target model, but we were just a good fit for that particular customer. And then I was really fortunate to sign our first dealer group as well, which for us, the dealer group approach, 5 stores, 10 stores, 20 store opportunities is the key for us to scale. So for us to be able to get that first win in the first 12 months and sort of establish that we can build a business model and really a use case across the big group was a pretty big achievement for us early on.
And some of these challenges that you had, like with the technical acumen, as well as bridging cultural gaps, how did you overcome some of those challenges?
A lot of try, fail, and adjust. That probably was our core motto for a little bit. Let's get out there, try it, see how it does, fail, adjust. We started quickly to learn that it wasn't what we did, and really this translates to any sales or any sales model. It wasn't what we did really well. It was how what we did impacted our target client. And then we got really good at messaging around that, which shortened sales cycle, which created more actionable opportunities. And that's really where we started to pivot and started to truly scale for sure.
One of the things that I found, going from being a chemist and working with a lot of technical teams, is that we tend to feel that we need to spit product knowledge on our clients. But what it
Yes.
sounds like is you guys focused on the problems the actual clients were having and the impacts, and you didn't just spit technical knowledge.
Yes. That is precisely the adjustment we made early on. And I say early, so I've been here a little over 4 years. It probably took us 12 months to really understand that, yes, what we were selling was probably the coolest thing in the space. It was new, it was fresh, it was exciting, it was well funded, had a lot of support from the OEMs, but none of that actually created real actionable opportunities. It was when we connected what our impact was to what their issues or problem was in their operation is when we started to see real traction.
I love that. I love that. And I think that when we make that shift and when we use the data that we have, we use the history and we allow it to give us traction for the future, that's really where we see our success coming in. Not just
Yes.
only saying we've done this, and it keeps failing. What is the definition of insanity, right? Continuing to do the
Yeah,
same thing and having the same result. So,
exactly.
as you continue to grow and scale this organization, at what point did you start building that team out?
Uh, so we started as basically regional sales directors, but we had to figure out how to sell it.
Hmm.
So really there was a 12 to 18 month period of us getting out there as individual contributors, figuring it out, building the sales process, and then starting to build a team out from that. So it was probably 18 months in to our go-to-market strategy was when we started to look for the right people and have some foundation to train on and make sure that they launch properly.
So I really want to stay here for a moment because a lot of times I find that there are people that are hired to come into an organization and they say, I'm hiring you to build a team. And they think on day one, they're going to build a team. But really, yes, you can build a team, but you have to show that there's some revenue. Like you have to show that you can do the job first. So
Yes.
as you were making that transition of really stepping to the space of like, I have to sell. I have to get out of the place that I've been for so long and leading a team to actually selling. Like, how was that transition to taking that step back for you?
So I've always sold.
Mm.
So in any role, any company, any vertical that I was in, that was fundamentally what I was doing. So it is difficult to step back from that because you love that challenge of the win, and so I'm still able to do a little bit of that even up to today,
Mm.
looking for some deals and larger opportunities while also supporting my team. Um, I think once we felt like we had a good foundation, we started to get the right people. But as well as I do, when you're building a team out, you know, the first version of that team likely isn't the version that's going to go to market and be sustainable and successful. So we've had changes, ups and downs, pivots in strategy. And what we found is one, it's got to be the right person, the right fit, the right experience. They had to have had some sort of experience in the environment that we're selling into. For my role, it's automotive. And they have to have background in being able to manage a market, travel, understand sales process, and understand the note that I mentioned earlier was if they're too tech focused, there's going to be a lot of maybe opportunities. But if they drive home the impact, that's where our actionable opportunities come. And I felt like transitioning to where we're currently at as a sales team, we have the right people, the right focus, and the right sales strategy. I feel like we're in our best position right now to really have a huge 2025.
So share with us some of those challenges that you had when you were trying to get the composition of that team really congealed. Like, what were some of those things that you experienced?
Yeah, transparently, we hired a lot of people who knew a lot of people. And you probably in your own experience, you've seen that could pose different set of challenges. So I learned quickly that I wasn't never going to hire anyone based on who they knew.
Yeah.
I would hire someone based on them as a person, their experience, their past successes and struggles. I mean, we all have learned and succeeded, and make sure they're a good fit culturally. So I feel like that was probably one of my biggest adjustments as we started to build the early versions of the sales team was like, look, you got a great resume, but tell me about you as a person. Tell me about how you succeed in your current role, where you've struggled. Like to me, those are the things that are really important. That was probably the biggest pivot, me personally, as I built out my own team for sure.
I know that I often see what happens within organizations when you hire people for their book of business. They're
Mm.
like, oh, they're going to follow me. Oh, they're going to come with me. And what that salesperson doesn't know is, yeah, you're the face of the company and we like you a little bit, but we actually like what we're getting from the company more. We like the service, we like the product.
Yes.
And then the cost to switch. Like a lot of people don't think about the cost to switch may not be worth it for that customer. And
Yes.
that salesperson, that is a relationship salesperson, does not know how to build business.
No, no. And I live that firsthand. Um, I'm fortunate that UVI as a company, there's always pressure as we're scaling, right? Like, where's the next deal coming from? Are we hitting forecast? But the company and leadership in the company have given us a lot of flexibility to learn and adjust and fail and adjust and rebuild. And really, renovation mindset is something I've been talking a lot about recently. Like, I felt like early on, it was like, go hard and then let's rebuild this whole thing. And it would start over. And it would be like, go hard. Okay, let's rebuild. And I think right now, where I'm at with my team personally is more of a renovation mindset. Like, I live in a house that was built in the 40s, right? So I'm constantly renovating. I love my house. It's got a lot of character, but we're constantly upgrading and improving and changing and tweaking.
Yeah.
And I feel like as the team has changed and the dynamic of the team and the approach, I feel like the renovation mindset has been really impactful for me personally as I've grown the team.
I love that. So tell me what have you done in terms of renovating the team and what things do you still have to do?
For me, I think it's a lot of that renovation was in sales process,
Mm.
in the discussions that we were having. What does discovery look like? Um, Less of let me tell you what we do, and a lot more of help me understand how you fill in the blank.
Yeah.
In my world, like how do you write a car up in service?
Hmm.
How do you appraise a vehicle? What does your client experience look like when they have a service issue that they have to come back and it's a complaint?
Yeah.
Um, that pivot to help me understand your versus let me tell you about my
Ah.
was a really big sort of a milestone for us and a pivot light bulb moment, whatever analogy you want to use.
Mhm.
It was really, really big for us.
Oh, that's good. That's good. And, it sounds like you follow this process that I talk about often. People plus process equals profit. Get the
Yes.
right people in the seats. If you
Yes.
have the wrong people, I don't care how good your sales process is, it's never going to work, right?
No.
But you got to get the right people. And then you give them a process that they can follow, even a lower performer, even if somebody who doesn't have the best skill set. And that's
Right.
what really leads to profitability within an organization.
Right. Yeah. And I live that. Like we as a company live that. We had the wrong people and maybe, a disjointed process. And then we really got focused on people, but then we didn't have the process to make sure that the people could really elevate and succeed. Where we're at currently is right people, right process, right management, measurables, metrics to make it repeatable, manageable, and it's really driving success for us for sure.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And I think that as you continue to grow your team, like having that process, that foundation, kind of like you said, renovating a house, the process is the foundation. If you
Yeah,
have a shaky foundation, then it doesn't matter how much you build on top because things will come crashing down.
strongly agree.
So, as you have continued to grow and scale, it's been 4.5 years since you've been in this position. You went from individual contributor to having this very high performing team. What would you say some of your biggest challenges that you're still working on are today?
I think forecast accuracy is always a challenge. We're a new product in a new space. It's a new spend, and it's an emotional decision at the store level where we're targeting. So being accurate in forecasting, uh, don't fall for the normal trap of this person's interested, so I'm going to forecast it. Have you checked all the boxes, right? Have you worked through the process? Have you gotten them to the point where you've earned the right? And I feel strongly about this. You have to truly earn the right to ask for someone's business. You earn the right by talking about how we can help you, talking about what other clients who have partnered with us, the results they've seen, and making sure that all their questions and concerns are resolved. Then you've gotten to the point where you've earned the right to ask for their business. So I think all that plays into, accurate forecasting. That's probably still our biggest challenge. I feel like, I've seen some great content from you on forecasting, forecast accuracy.
Mhm.
I feel like that's really across all sales orgs is figuring out how to hit that target. We were 150% of Q1 goal,
Wow.
but we were super light in March, and we missed big targets in March. So the first couple of days of Q2 in April is like refiguring how we're forecasting. What do the real actionable opportunities look like? How do you get to the no? I talk about that a lot with my team. Like, get to the no.
Yeah.
Like it's not a bad thing.
No.
Let's get to the no.
Yeah.
And is it resolvable, or let's move them out of our pipeline? That's a big focus for us too.
Yeah. And, talking about forecasting, I think it is one of those magical, mystical things, right? That it is a very difficult thing as a sales
Yes.
leader. And so a question that I have for you is when you think about your forecasting accuracy, like, are you looking at specific parts of the forecast at a time, or what have you decided to do to really hone in to say, let me figure this out?
Yeah, I think from previous success and being an individual contributor, I think helps me be a little bit more versed in what it's going to look like when we have a deal that's ready to close, because I'm still doing that currently along with building a team. So there's certain steps for us personally, and I'm sure across all sales orgs, they have to have seen our technology live somewhere, because it's a big piece of equipment. It has to fit in their business physically and process wise. So have they seen the system, and have they connected with dealers who are referrals for us or reference dealers? Those two things to me are really what makes it a very interested opportunity and a closable, actionable opportunities. If those two boxes are checked, then we can forecast that thing and feel good about it.
So it sounds like it goes back to process. So having your process and making sure people are following the process is really what impacts that forecasting.
Absolutely.
Oh.
Strongly agree.
Okay, so now I want to take a walk down memory lane, and I want to ask you a couple questions in your previous life. What is something that you wish somebody would have told you before you stepped into this leadership role?
That is a great question. Probably that I was capable, because at least in the automotive world, and maybe it's similar in other verticals, but transitioning from the retail dealership space to the vendor space is not an easy transition. It's hard to get out of the retail life. But then when I first started as a vendor, I was wrestling with the approach, because I was being a vendor as I hoped that vendors would partner with me and approach me, and that's how I was approaching it. And early on, I was trying to figure out, is that the right way to do it? Do I need to change? Does how I think and act and talk, like, is that good enough to fit this role and this big initiative that I'm taking on, this startup from across the ocean? And what I found is, and back to your question of what I wish someone would have told me, is that you're capable. The 20 years you spent in your previous role in the retail side was not a waste of time. It's incredibly powerful experience that you now can scenario sell and situational sell from. And I think that doubt early on is actually what's made me really effective in my current role, is trying to prove that I'm capable and that I have the skill set to do this. And yeah, so that's probably the top thing.
The top thing. So today you're still trying to prove to Jim of 4.5 years ago that you're capable.
Yes.
Wow, that's powerful. That's powerful. So now I'm going to take that a step further. And what do you wish that you would have done differently when you first started in this role?
Probably had more confidence in what my gut instincts were. I think I was trying to adapt a lot of outside influence into what we were doing, where I knew that we had to solve a problem for our target client. And I knew that our conversation and our approach and our discovery had to encompass a lot of that time. So I would probably push back against the rush to product and spend more time and slow down with that discovery process of figuring out what their issue is at that time, in that space.
I really love what you said, because both of the things that you talked about are something that I talk about so often. And that's mindset over skill set. So you
Yep.
wish somebody would have told you that you were capable, and you wished you would have trusted yourself more. And I
Yes.
think that oftentimes, especially in leadership roles and even in sales roles as individual contributors, we don't trust ourselves.
No.
And there's no one there saying, you're doing a good job, Jim. You can do this, right? And I think that it's really important for us to surround ourselves by positive influences. And it's important
Yes.
for us, like literally every day. I was texting with somebody this morning, and I was giving her a whole framework for doing this thing she wants to do. And I said, so what I want you to do after you spend this 30 minutes focusing on this thing is write down, I'm proud I accomplished X today. And just simply writing that down. And I said,
Right.
putting it in a notes app in your phone, and on those hard days, read that. Because if we talk to ourselves or we encourage ourselves, then in those difficult moments, then we don't tend to roll over as much.
Totally agree. I love that. I probably could have used that over the last over the last 4.5 years. It's great advice that I'm going to put in play moving forward for sure.
Yeah, it is. It is so powerful to just do those things, like remind ourselves of our greatness. Because if we don't, nobody else is. Nobody else is going to be like, Wesley, you're an amazing mom. Wesley, you're a good business owner. Nobody's going to tell me that on a daily basis when I need to do it and feel it in myself.
Yes. I feel like that's such a powerful point, and I feel like it's magnetized and really magnetized is probably the best word. Magnified is the forecast culture that a lot of sales orgs live in. Where it's just like, hey, tell me what you're selling today. Not tell me how your day is, or who you met with last week that you felt like was a big win for you. It's like, what are you selling today? What are you selling this week? What are you selling this month? I feel like forecast culture drives home some of those doubts, some of that frustration and anxiety that salespeople have.
Yeah, I think that we have to, and I tell my team, when I do sales training, I always actually start with at least 90 minutes of mindset. So we focus on getting our mind in the game. And I like them to realize that they're humans, right? Like, you're not just a number. You're not just as good as what you did last month or last quarter. You're a human. And I want you to bring your whole self to work. And you can show up in your perfectly imperfect self. You can show up and say, I had a difficult night last night, and I'm just going to be quiet over here and do what I need to do. I'm focused on working, right? And I think that for us as leaders, we're the ones who have to break that ice and create that culture so our team feels like they're connected to us. And what that does, I've had leaders say, Wesleyan, I don't need warm fuzzy. Just teach them how to do better discovery. I'm like, yes. So the problem is you're not warm and fuzzy enough. And that's why your turnover is so high, because people don't feel connected to you.
Yes. Strongly agree.
So, final question before we wrap. I want you to share an experience within your life, personally or professionally, that you feel has impacted you the greatest.
Wow. That's a big question. I feel like failure has probably impacted me because I've had the ability over the last 4 years to do it often and to adjust from it and learn from it and then improve. And I feel like I'm the best version of myself as a sales leader and as an individual contributor, but more so as a sales leader today because of some of the early missteps, failures, bad decisions that were made, that I made, as I learned how to be a a good sales leader in this particular role that I'm in currently. So not to be cliche, but I feel like failure was definitely a driver of today's success for me.
That's awesome. I recently listened to a podcast because I consume the things that I do. So I love
Yeah.
podcasts. And I recently listened to a podcast, and I can't even remember the athlete's name, but they were talking about somebody who was recently admitted into the Hall of Fame. And they literally said their batting average was like 24%, but they were in the Hall of Fame. And it was
Yeah.
an example to show that you lose more than you win, but you can still be great. And I
Yeah, you got
think
to learn
that
from it.
that failure is what has propelled you to where you are today, and that failure
Yep.
will continue to help you because we learn in our failures, right? We learn so much from the things that we don't do well.
Yes. I I learn from wins, and I hope that I learn from a lot more wins moving forward. But I feel like you learn really, really important lessons from failures because they sting, and they cause you to question, and they cause you to rethink and renovate your mindset and your approach and your process. And that's been big for me.
Jim, you have given us so many gems, so many amazing things. If people want to connect with you and find out more about you, what is the one best way?
LinkedIn is probably the best way.
Okay.
I'm on there often. I'm not a professional speaker, but I find myself speaking often. So, putting out good content about my company and about some of the things that I think we share a lot of perspective in: sales approach, process, wins, losses, things like that. So, LinkedIn is probably the best way to find me.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for sharing your time, your talent, and your expertise with us today.
Thank you for the invite. I really appreciate it.